Tape Deck Media.
Hey gang, Taylor here, just dropping in before the episode to humbly request that you fill out a survey I've got going at the moment. I'm trying to figure out how many listeners I've got, where they are, what they like about the show, what they don't like about the show, and what I can do better moving forward. So if you're a regular or even sporadic listener of Ruddle Me This, I'd like you to head along to taylorruddle.com/survey and that'll redirect you to a Google form. Just trying to figure out what direction to head the podcast in moving forward, and any suggestions you have would be very gratefully accepted. Alrighty, back to the show. Enjoy the episode. Good morning, Ruddle Maniacs. Welcome back to another episode of Ruddle Me This. I am, as always, your faithful host, Taylor Sir Laughs a Lot Ruddle. I'm going to be testing out a few new post-processing effects on my voice in this episode, so I hope you are hearing a silky smooth, delightfully professional-sounding Taylor right now. Welcome along to episode 69, nice, of Ruddle Me This. Today's guest is Anto Martin. Calling him just a comedian would be doing a bit of a disservice to him. He is a man who has lived many lifetimes in the space of one. Every time I talk to Anto, he reveals a new piece of lore about his past, and I'm just shocked at how much this guy manages to get done. His professional credits are that he is a qualified whole-person health and well-being coach, an on-it alternative fitness trainer, an ex-Guinness World Record holder, and probably the most relevant of them all, a winner of the High Five Award at Universal Studios Hollywood. He's also my friend and a very funny stand-up comedian. We were chatting away a couple of weeks back, and he dropped the phrase, done is better than perfect, somewhere in the conversation, and that really spoke to me, as that's something I've worked very hard to overcome, the internal perfectionist, and I've been trying to live my life by a similar motto. As if you've been following me for however long, you'll notice I've been releasing a lot more stuff lately, and I'm definitely trying to embrace the idea of done being much better than perfect. So I thought I'd bring Anto on the podcast and we'd have a bit of a chat about it, and maybe I'll pick his brain a little bit and see what kind of techniques he uses to motivate himself and get out there and do all these wonderful things he's been doing. No plugs to get out of the way this week, just the usual. The Holy Moly Archie Brothers quiz on Tuesday this week, and then the Moi Moi quiz on Wednesday, and then the Laugh Cellar on Thursday this week. However, next week, on the 27th of June, we are going to be doing a Beats by Bingo out at Thirsty Acres in Kiwi. I'm not sure if any of my listeners are based out that way, but if you are, come along and play. There's going to be some very generous prizes on offer, I'm sure. They always really look after me when I go out there to run events, or we did a comedy show there. I look after the quiz sometimes. I very much enjoy heading out to Thirsty Acres. Alrighty, let's get on with the interview. Please, ladies and gentlemen, everybody in between, welcome to the show, Anto Martin, everybody. Hello, Anto. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Taylor. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I feel like it was funny because we've known each other for a little while now, and this is kind of the first time that we're doing any kind of projects together, I guess. So you're entering the Ruddleverse at the moment. But I wanted to bring you on today because I have to say, do you remember that commercial for beer that was like the most interesting man in the world? And he would always talk about all of these accomplishments and stuff that he'd done. Like, you're the closest person I've met to that character in the beer ads.
Oh, well, I'll take that as a compliment. I don't know the ad myself, being from Ireland. I don't think we had it.
I think it was I don't know if it was a Heineken commercial. But there was just this character that they used, and it would, I don't know. We don't need to get into the weeds, but that was just what he was called, was the most interesting man in the world. Because I feel like every time I chat to you, you always drop some new information about your previous jobs or whatever you've done, and it just seems important. Like, you're probably one of the only people that I know that can legitimately say they're living life to the fullest. So I thought you'd be a good person to talk to about the topic of the day.
Oh, thank you. I'll take it as a compliment, as I said, and thanks for having me in the Ruddleverse. I've been a follower for a while, so
fantastic.
Nice to be finally given the ticket to enter.
You're very kind. So we are going to talk today about, I suppose the general topic could be summed up as just getting things done, or how to get over roadblocks and mental barriers, that sort of thing. Because again, I think we chatted about this at a show somewhere where you mentioned the phrase "done is better than perfect," and that's a phrase I've recently sort of I've begun to realize you don't have to be quite as critical on yourself when you're putting stuff out there. Or I guess it's more like you'll just be surprised at the things you think you're going to be criticized for. You don't get criticized for them when you put content out online. And so I thought I wanted to do a podcast about that, and I figured, yeah, let's bring Anto on and we can sort of have a chat about it, because you do a few clips and stuff on the social media, don't you?
Look, I try to. I'm definitely not the best either, but yeah, I do. And as you were saying, we have spoke about done is better than perfect, and then look, if you're waiting for perfect, you'd be waiting till you're grey in the face, as they say,
Yeah, exactly. If you're waiting for the perfect moment, you'll be long dead before it happens, I think was another one that I heard. And that's pretty much it. So like, I guess the thing that spurred off my thinking about this was dropping the special, which was something that I had sort of been umming and ahhing about for many years, about what the perfect, there's the word there, perfect, what the perfect form to do it was. And, when you let something sit like that for a long time, I think the mental barrier gets higher and higher and higher. And then eventually you kind of have to just say like, fuck it and go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, funny enough, there is a bit of research in that
Really?
on the fact the longer you overthink something, the more likely it's not to happen.
Yeah.
I believe they call it 4 seconds. Within the 4 seconds, and a lot of research is done on if you're like walking somewhere and you see someone fall or injure themselves,
Yeah.
you've got 4 seconds to actually help them, or you then overthink it and then walk away.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure I've been in those situations before. We had that in Japan once. An old man fell off his bike. It was weird because he wasn't moving. He just toppled over. And yeah, you do have that sense of like, yeah, why is it 4 seconds? Have they given any reason that 4 seconds is when we start to overthink?
Not that I didn't go massively in depth in it, but it was just a case of that was it. Like that would seem to be a good number to react, or by then, someone else is going to react, or someone else, or you'll just think 4 seconds gives you enough time, I guess, to make excuses up.
Interesting. I've noticed that whenever have been in a situation where I've seen what looks like could possibly be crime, like someone running, like after alleged shoplifting or something like that, my always thought is like, well, I didn't see it happen, so I don't know, I don't want to just tackle someone out of the blue. And I wonder if that's the same kind of thing taking place, or if it's again just self-preservation and laziness, coming up with reasons not to intervene.
Well, it's all just overthinking, really. You're even explaining what you just thought process was there. Should I tackle him? Shouldn't I tackle him? Did he do something? Did he do something? You've already gone through 2-3 excuses, 2 or 3 reasons to do it. This constant, not so much the good and evil, but yin and yang, I guess, on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So, and the longer that goes in there, the more excuses, the further away from the incident then you become.
Yes. Yeah. That is very interesting. Have you discovered any, like, because I think of you as quite a motivated person. What was that thing you ran recently? You were like, I was following you on like Instagram or Snapchat or something, and you were running around the mountains in like near Queenstown or something like that, right?
Yeah. So I do some ultra running. So I'm not 100% sure which one you're seeing. The most recent one was Skedaddle, which was a marathon run with just under 3,000 meters elevation. So quite a technical one.
You did quite a bit of I think the app, maybe it showed where you were on kind of like a point on the run, and then it would zoom in and show a photo that you'd taken that was uploaded there. But I guess the main reason I ask about that is when you're preparing to do something like that, is motivation something you struggle with, or are you pretty good at self-motivating yourself?
Well, to bring that back even to the point of done is better than perfect. motivation, it comes and goes. If you're waiting for perfection, as we're saying, you'd be waiting all day. What is perfection? What your perfection is different to my perfection. Is anything perfect really? The word itself means no flaws. What's no flaws?
Yeah,
like
that's a tall order.
Yeah. So how do you then get from there to there and motivate yourself, to get it out there? And again, we know that willpower is a big part of this. Willpower comes from the prefrontal cortex, and the brain. As much as it's a very complicated muscle, it is just that. So what I like to do is I like to step out of my comfort zone at least once a month, and very much consciously, like it's not a situation that comes. I make sure I put myself in a situation that is really uncomfortable to me. And them uncomfortable moments, it's in my head, or David Goggins would call it, reaching into the cookie jar. Reaching into the cookie jar. But so it's just pushing yourself to be uncomfortable. And then it just becomes more, and anything just becomes easier then.
Yeah.
So that motivation side of it is, for me, is just trying to be uncomfortable, really. And whether it's a marathon run, whether it's on a stage doing something, or at work, there's lots of aspects in my life where you're going to convincing yourself that you do like to do it, but you don't really, that is the idea of it.
Well, I think it's one of those things where you're maybe not happy in the moment, but you're happy to have done it afterwards, right?
Oh, 100%. And even during it, the bloke, Andrew Herbert, is that his name? He has a mind trick where he tells you, just when you're in the worst part of it, just keep telling yourself you love it. Because, when you're telling yourself these thoughts, your body doesn't really know it's not true.
Yeah.
So they have what's it called? The Wonder Woman stance, where you just stand proud and you give that 30 seconds, and it tricks the body into thinking that you are stronger and better and more confident, and then you are. That's the thing about it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I've heard athletes will do that. They'll picture themselves as their favorite superhero or something before going out to play football, for example, and then, like you say, the brain tricks the body into believing that it's stronger and more powerful than it is. I was going to say as well, did you have an example of something that you did, like the most recent time? What was your uncomfortable situation that you put yourself in?
I guess the most, outside of just physical exertion, a lot of times I just try to learn stuff. So the last really uncomfortable thing I tried to do was to learn how to dance.
Oh, right.
That is not, which comes, I try it every now and again. I'll give it a little bit of a twirl, or, I still don't have too good dancing feet, that's for sure.
No, that's one thing I've always, if I was doing slightly better financially, I would at least try to go to like a Zumba class or something and just get over that fear of public dancing, which is I understand your trepidation there. It's terrifying.
Well, they do say as well that there's a gene in the body that only gets activated when you challenge yourself.
Oh.
And so, as much as they say, like, there's I don't know, phrase, I think it was, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
Oh yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah,
but the reality of it is, like, again, biologically, it's true. It actually will biologically, in a DNA level, slightly change you.
Wow.
So,
damn, I didn't know. Because I think that segues quite well into the me just sort of deciding to film this special, because it was, when you sit on an idea or a project for too long and you sort of, the mental wall builds up. My main way of getting myself over that is I'll just pick a deadline. Have you ever used this trick before, where you set yourself a deadline and then, or I think the expression might be jump first, then figure out how to make the parachute? That's the kind of approach that I go for if I'm really fed up with stagnation and not being able to, getting too bogged down in details, or getting obsessed with trying to find the perfect moment, whatever. Quite often my move is just to sort of throw caution to the wind and then pick when it's going to happen, and then say, well, then I don't have a choice, but I have to figure out how to do this.
Yeah, look, I am very much, when I studied in college, I was very much a night beforehand studier.
Yes, yeah,
I know what you mean by them deadlines, all right.
yeah,
And they are some tricks that people will use to just to make sure that they're doing the right milestones, more so than, not so much probably the goal, because the goal is the end of it.
yeah.
But like milestones to get to the goal.
So people will
keep you on track.
They'll decide like by this date I will have, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's probably the smarter way of doing what I did, instead of me just deciding like this is the date when it's got to have happened by. So there might be an adjustment to make, because I've already sort of decided when I want to film my next one, which also sort of ironically enough, you've seen most of the set, I think, when we did that one with David at Little Andromeda. And funnily enough, that show is about overthinking. So it ties quite nicely into this podcast here.
Nice, yeah. So yeah, like what I would do if you have the end date, which is perfect, so you know what the completed version is, and then work backwards.
Yeah.
So literally to the fourth step of when you're gonna make sure the lights are set, when you're gonna make sure the microphone is there, when you're gonna, the stand,
that's right, yeah.
Everything.
It's always funny because you said, you were telling us you have worked in some kind of festival. What did you do for festivals? You were working for music festivals or something, you told us, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I worked. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the one thing I've noticed every time I go to film something, there's always a sort of like one thing in the production always goes wrong. Like the last time it was the lights were they're about 10 times too powerful for the room. So we ended up not using them. And then the time before that, I forget what the disaster was, but there was some kind of disaster. So I've kind of built that into my process now of accepting that like probably something is going to go wrong, because that's just the way of life. And so yeah, that has helped me a little bit. Oh, the time before that was the venue moved my show to the same day as Christmas in the Park, which I did not get nearly as many people as I thought I was going to on that day. So yeah, there's always going to be something that goes wrong, but it doesn't ruin my night like it used to.
No, like you can't let it. No, if you're working with, just even when I was doing music, when I was working with the bigger bands, or the Rihannas of the world, they come with everything. Do you know what I mean? They have their cables. They're not using house anything, because they're not even using house stages. They're bringing their own stage, their own speakers, their own lights, their own microphone, their own everything. And that's really to minimize exactly that issue.
Yes.
But at our level, we don't have a full setup like that, or at least I know I don't.
Yeah.
So just accepting that, okay, some things are probably not going to be 100% ideal, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. Again, like I says, and then really embracing them flaws. Because people love a good, epic fail, so to speak.
Yeah. What I quite like, and this partially inspired my decision to film Rudzilla and have one, because that's the thing, is I kind of went, well, it's not going to be perfect. I already accepted that by the time I decided we were going to film it. But what had sort of inspired me was this. Have you ever heard of this comedian called Sean Walsh?
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
He his story is he was up and coming, and he got on Dancing with the Stars, and what is the British one? Strictly Come Dancing, I think it's the British one. And his career was on the up. It seemed like he was getting, it was about to happen for him. And then he got embroiled in a scandal because him and his partner from the show had an affair with each other. And I think he does explain why, but for some reason it was a particularly slow news day or something, but that made the front page of the papers. And so his career, well, it wasn't over as such, but it was definitely stopped in its tracks compared to what it looked like he was going to. And so he actually recorded these two specials. The first one was called Kiss, and then the second one was called Sean Walsh is Dead, Happy Now. And that was basically, from his point of view, everything that happened. And he was basically just telling the story. But of course, it's funny because he's a stand-up comedian. And they weren't recorded in big theaters. They were just in the Bill Murray Night Comedy Club, which is, I think, where is the Bill Murray? Is that Liverpool or something? It was recorded there, and yeah, they're not well lit. It's not, things go wrong on the night. Like he even mentions it in the show. But like they've been two of my favorite specials that have come out, like that I've seen in the last few years. So that partially inspired me to think, like, exactly as you said, just embrace the fact that stuff's gonna go wrong. They didn't make the final cut of the special, but my first two jokes actually didn't get a laugh when I was filming mine. So that was like, I remember what happened and I went, oh boy, this could be quite a long night, but we got them on board in the end. So yes, that's a great piece of advice there. Embrace that it's not going to go to plan.
Yeah, and even with them two jokes you said, I'd have no problem trying them up and being like, what not to do. It's just like
maybe that would have been better. But I thought the reason I cut them out was because they weren't particularly relevant to the rest of the show. They were meant to just be like quick, trust me, I'm a comedian jokes. And I thought people who are watching might lose faith in the rest of it and go, oh, this guy's rubbish, and turn off. So I thought, let's just, for the sake of getting some views, let's cut that out.
Yeah, no, I don't mean during that special bit, but have them as like a little bonus or a little add-on.
I should. Yes. No, that's a great idea. Like, yeah. Okay. So listeners of the podcast, follow me on YouTube. I'm going to post those at some point. Thank you, Anto, for that idea.
Yeah. And you'll see what not to do if you want to make someone laugh.
Yes. No, that's a great idea. I can't believe I never thought to do that. I have released uncut versions of my specials before. But no, that's a great idea. I will definitely do that.
Yeah. Well, it's not an uncut version. It's just behind the scenes, the making of this. Not every joke works. And we're talking about, I seen Dave Chappelle when he's done his last one, when he was in the making of it. Not every joke was amazing.
Really? You saw the live set before it was filmed, kind of thing. Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And look, and you can still see bits and pieces. I'm sure they will release, but I like on comedians. I follow. I'll look at their mishaps, so to speak. Or
I love seeing. Like, do you follow Jim Jeffries at all?
I do. Yeah.
So he has this old special called Contraband, which is like, have you seen it?
I think so. Yeah. That was before his.
Yeah, it was kind of his. It was like his sort of prototype special, and a lot of the jokes from that went on to be in other shows and stuff. So, I guess I can drop it here on the podcast. But after my next special comes out, I've got one that's been recorded that I'm also going to drop on YouTube, probably around the end of the year sometime. Which is like, it was that one that they moved it to the same day as Christmas in the Park, and I want to drop that because pretty much every joke in that went on to be a joke in the other two specials that I'm just about to release this year. So it's kind of like a weird little secret prototype gig. Because I think the one thing I quite like about a comedy special is like, it's kind of like a time capsule of the era that it was released in. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we all kind of got sick of COVID jokes, but like, I do quite like the fact that, like these Sean Locke ones are very much of their time. Yeah, no, definitely. And I guess something that a lot of people probably watching them won't realize, but also your own mindset when you're writing them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which, that can change sometimes week to week, but sometimes I write a joke and I go, Jesus, was I drunk? Well, that was the thing I learned recording this Rudzilla one, is I realized how dirty of a comedian I used to be. There's a lot of sort of lewd material, and I use swears quite a bit. And as I was, because, you run the material to sort of brush it up to get ready to release the special. And I was just doing the bits. So I was thinking, geez, I used to be quite a potty mouth compared to what I am now. So that was cool to see. At least then, like, there's been some growth there. Or maybe not growth, but there's been some change there, Growth could be arguable. Yeah. Different market, I guess. Market. Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's the life cycle of men who start doing comedy, is I think you start off quite bawdy, and then you, over the, several years, you kind of find the groove that you like. And like, how long have you been doing stand-up for yourself, Anto? Well, I started off actually doing improv. So I've been doing improv for about 5 years, and then stand-up for about 2. So stand-up not too long. Was improv one of those things you wanted to do to make yourself uncomfortable? Yeah. Yep. And getting into the comedy side of it again was just that next step. Yeah. I got done the improv, really enjoyed it.
it's a completely different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
The whole principle, yes, and it's not something you, on a normal day. It's the opposite. Actually, someone says something to me, I'm like, hold on a minute, is that true? Whereas you just got to go with it. Yes,
yes, yeah. I was going to say, have you ever done a show of improv? Like, I'm guessing if you've been doing it for 5 years, you would have done some performances and stuff. What was your first one? What was the experience of doing your first one like?
I remember thinking I was sweating a lot.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because I thought I'd done fairly terrible. I remember just being hot and constantly thirsty. And then I sweat because I just came from work as well. So I was in a work shirt and there was just patches of sweat under me. But then afterwards, everyone was like, "Oh my God, you done so well." And I was
nice.
like, "I don't think so, but thanks."
Well, I think improv is one of those things that looks like magic to people that don't understand how it works. Like, there is a process that you go through. I've done a couple of improv shows. I'd love to do more of it, but annoying thing is the only places you can sort of do it, I've got things on the night they do their sort of open practice. So, say lovey. But I remember I did one, and compared to stand up, you might be able to corroborate this, but when you go up for an improv show, I always felt this kind of like, when you're just about to go over the lip of a roller coaster, there's that kind of like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here. And I remember just sort of being like, are we going to get laughs? Like, is it going to be funny? And I did a couple of sketches, and the first one that we were getting laughs off of, I remember just being like it was like magic. Like, I was like, we're getting laughs off this. This is amazing. And so, yeah, it's something about that, having absolutely zero preparation compared to stand up. You have a pretty good idea if your stuff's going to work, but the other side of that coin, improv, is having nothing prepared can be quite liberating, but also I find it terrifying when you're actually performing on a show.
Yeah, I'd fairly agree with that. It is definitely leading up to the show, doing improv. Oh, the best thing ever. Don't have to worry about anything. Yeah. Don't have to remember wordplay. Don't have to remember a joke. All you got to remember is to put on maybe a shirt that doesn't show your sweat. And then, but then when you're on stage, you're like, oh my God, how am I meant? Someone goes to you, here's a potato. And you're like, how am I meant to make this funny?
Yeah.
But to be fair, that was in the earlier days. In the later days, you try to work on the story more than than jokes, and then jokes just funny just happens, in improv, where writing jokes, it's your material, it's what you thought about. Like, I've wrote jokes that I knew had like so many layers in them and that I thought was hilarious, and then I'd say them and nobody would have a clue what I'm talking about because
isn't it the most frustrating thing when your references, you realize the reference you thought was pretty broad is actually a lot nicher than you thought.
Yeah, definitely. But that even goes back to that whole thing of being perfect. Improv is so flawed, so bad. And one of the most beautiful things in improv, and one of the funniest things in improv, is someone not getting it right. It's someone just absolutely failing miserably, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
You go to, so here's a potato, and they're like, oh, and they just run off, and they're just like, or they just say something wrong, or they don't know what they're at. They're some of the bigger laughs.
That makes sense. Yeah. I suppose the expectation is lesser as well with improv. I think the audience goes into it with the mindset of like, we don't know what's going to happen, so that when you do get a big laugh, you sort of like, it's that expectation versus what was delivered. So yeah, I can imagine they're a little more forgiving than a stand-up audience, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree. But also the people in improv are there to embrace failure.
Yes.
And again, it really kind of goes around to that. Get it out there. If you've got something, fail 100 times, 1,000 times, but get it done. They'll embrace the failure, where you'll see it with comedians, where they'll say a joke and the crowd didn't laugh, and then they blame the crowd. And you're like, that's not. But and look, I'm sure you've done it yourself. I know I've done it hundreds of times where I've said a joke, hasn't gone well, and I went, well, I thought that was going to do better. And then everyone laughs because I've just completely owned up to the failure of what I thought was funny.
Yeah, I think they appreciate the fact that you're not a tape recorder, that you're present in the room with them. I think is the thing that helps there, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. But again, like we're just, in order to succeed, you have to fail.
Yeah, that's the thing.
There's no other way around it.
I actually just watched there's a hypnotist called Darren Brown who has a special called Showman that a friend of mine actually, I think he recorded it off the TV because there was ads playing in the middle of it, but he did this special called Showman, and at a certain point he starts to talk about his father passing away during COVID, and at the start of the thing there's a whole bit of stuff about objects that are precious to people, and someone's got a grandmother's ring and all this kind of thing, but he starts off by saying either he interviewed people or he saw interviews with people and they asked what the biggest regrets people have on their deathbed, and it was pretty much unilaterally like I wish I'd taken more risks, I wish I'd done it for myself rather than, I think the most common one was I wish I had lived the life that I wanted to live, not the life that others wanted for me. And then I think the second one was I wish I'd taken more risks. So that was it fits the theme of this podcast pretty much perfectly. And yeah, I think it's the idea of you could be the greatest artistic genius of any kind, but if you're not actually putting work out for the public to see, then there's a 0% chance that anyone's going to discover you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Can you remember the ad? Speaking of ad, we started with an ad.
Yes.
Can you remember the Nike ad with Michael Jordan in it?
I suspect I would. What was it? Was it about the whole
Michael Jordan? I missed 9,000 shots, 300 in final. So look, I could be wrong on the numbers here, but it's 28 of the last minute winning shots I've missed, and that's why I'm the greatest.
Yeah, that's right. That's
because he's just had so much failure. He's had more failure than everyone, and therefore he's had more success than anyone.
Yes. No, that's a great. I might have to go and look that up after this and give that a watch.
It is a really good ad. Yeah.
we just got the Zoom thingy, so we are coming on about 8 minutes left. You wanted to talk a little bit about procrastination. Did you have any thoughts you wanted to share with the listeners about procrastination?
Oh, look, the thing is, I was just going to say, obviously, with being again, done is better than perfect. You can't talk about perfection without procrastination because they're so closely linked, sisters almost. And so, people use the word perfect as a put off, as using as procrastination. And again, going with procrastination, you really have to exercise that muscle. Very similar to what we were talking about already about trying to just do things that make you uncomfortable. Actually, there is there's a lot of I'm sure if you Google something, there's lots of stuff out there. James Clear has Atomic Habits that has a lot of things in there about trying to not procrastinate and making your goals achievable. They have, I can't think of the doctor's name, but do you know the lad who done the real controversial one?
There's something about the prison experiment.
Yes. He had one where he puts a dot in your forehead and to get you to walk around the street. Right. And that way people will make you feel uncomfortable by staring at you.
Oh, wow.
And that's a way that he would get that uncomfortableness out of the system, say.
Interesting.
There's a lot of.
I was going to say, it was a book, not Atomic Habits. Oh, I've lost it. Sorry. I interrupted you for nothing there. Okay. I remember what I was going to say. So it wasn't a book thing, but the one thought that I often repeat to myself is a bit like what we were saying before about you're not happy when it's happening, but you're happy to have done it. Do you speak any other languages, Anto?
A little bit of Gaelic, a little bit of French maybe, but I wouldn't be fluent by any means. I can order a beer.
Useful. When I was learning Japanese, it's frustrating learning another language. You especially when it just won't sink in. I remember thinking to myself that I was like, oh, I can't wait till I get to have one of those days when I'm like, speaking fluently to someone, and I think back to how frustrating it was as a student, like that feeling of like laughing in the beginning, laughing at how annoyed you were like 6 months ago, and sort of enjoying like that. That I think forward to how much I'm going to enjoy that moment when I'm struggling, and I've been sort of employing that now, trying to teach myself how to play the guitar, which I think we've spoken about this at gigs. But yeah, that's been what's keeping me going when I get frustrated trying to change the chords and stuff like that. As I keep thinking like, man, it's going to be sweet in like 6 months when you can do something. So that's a little tip I can give to the listeners out there.
Definitely. And also when it's hard, that's the most important bit of it.
Yeah.
When it's easy, it's easy. That doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form. It's only when you start struggling, whether it's from fatigue, whether it's from muscle memory, whether it's from physical, exertion, or whatever it might be. That's the moment when you start to change. That's the moment when you better yourself or become better in that thing. So when you hit that stage where you're like, oh my God, this is becoming hard now. That's awesome. That's brilliant.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
That's, because beforehand it hasn't been hard. And guess what? We can all, when I'm taking people out running, I can say to them, and they start pushing themselves and they start huffing and puffing. I say, well, look, we can all sit on the sofa and watch Netflix, but you're out to run and you're out to push yourself and you're out to actually, and only when you hit that stage where you're struggling will it actually make a difference.
That was what my my old kickboxing teacher used to say, something to that effect of like, when you're at the point where all your muscles are burning and stuff, he's like, that's almost the beginning. You know what I mean? Now this is when you're starting to do the work kind of thing. So that's great to know.
Yeah. So make sure next time I see you, I want your fingers to be bleeding.
Well, they were peeling, so I'll make sure I show you that. So the listeners, this is weird because you've got a bigger social media following than me. I don't think you need my plug necessarily, but where can the listeners of Ruddle Me This find more of you online, Anto?
Well, look, I guess my Instagram is just the easiest one because I kind of will be running anything off of that.
Yeah.
And so that's just Anto Martin or Binzi_M. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Or just stick me link in one of these and you
follow
me through Ruddle. Me through Ruddle.
Yeah, it'll all be in the description. But yeah, I will go follow Anto. He produces some good stuff, puts some good content out there, and you also share some good memes and clips. So yeah, I can recommend. It's a good follow.
Yeah. Again, I am trying to be more active in it. At the moment, I'm a solid once a week guy. If I can get twice a week now, just finding that extra bit of time, which again is an excuse.
Yeah,
because we all have 24 hours in a day. So
I guess that's true, but I mean, life happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, true.
Alrighty, Anto, thank you for joining me. Hope this is useful for the listeners, and we'll see you again in the future.
No problem. Thanks a million for having me, and look forward to catching up again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Ruddle Me This. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. You can find me on social media at Taylor Ruddle Comedy on all the major platforms. You can also join patreon.com/Taylor Ruddle Comedy for free, which gets you access to all sorts of extras and behind the scenes content, as well as allows you to communicate directly with me and let me know what you think of the show. Tune in again next Monday for another episode of Ruddle Me This, and until then, Ruddle her out.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.